welcome to December 2025 edition of Macro and Market Update. This month, we focus on India. Q2 FY26 real GDP rose 8.2% year-on-year versus 7.8% in Q1, even as nominal GDP remained muted at 8.7% year-on-year, 10 basis points lower from the previous quarter. Consumption continued to outpace capex, a pre-COVID trend, suggesting an economy lacking buoyancy. Real GDP strength is at odds with modest growth in several high-frequency indicators, including corporate data. We maintain that nominal GDP is the clearer indicator of India's economic pulse. Nominal growth presently is weaker than desired 11 to 12% at the very least for India. In summary, economic momentum during first half FY26 has been weak. Looking beyond Q2, high-frequency indicators for October show encouraging signs: a pickup in bank credit, healthy services exports, increased digital payment and freight activity, likely aided by GST rate cuts and festive demand, strong steel consumption, and resilient auto sales, especially for tractors and passenger vehicles. Tax collections have also improved in September and October 2025. However, concerns still persist whether FY26 full-year taxes will be able to meet the budgeted targets, which means that government spending would have to be pruned in the remainder of FY26 to keep the fiscal deficit in check. Overall, in the very near term, tariff overhang and fiscal constraints are key cyclical headwinds for India's growth. Additionally, competition from low-cost Chinese imports continue to weigh on manufacturing robustness. On the positive side, policy measures aimed at boosting demand appear to be gaining traction, reflected in a modest recovery in consumer spending. All said and done, we think that the worst is behind us in terms of growth, and there should be a directional improvement, mainly underpinned by policy focus. Recent reforms, including relaxation in bank lending norms, easing of quality control requirements, labor code reforms, and reductions in personal income tax and GST rates, states are also becoming more aggressive on ease of doing business and deregulation. For banks, the regulatory stance has shifted from risk aversion to growth orientation. Throughout 2025, there has been a tacit relaxation in credit to deposit ratio norms, liquidity coverage ratio requirements, and provisioning for unsecured loans. In November 2025, 4 ministries revoked multiple quality control orders, that is QCOs, covering 114 intermediate products including plastics, chemicals, textile raw materials, and metals. Between 2016 and 2025, QCOs had expanded significantly, mostly targeting raw materials and intermediates rather than finished goods, which is different from the global practice. This created operational complexity, supply chain disruptions, and higher costs for MSMEs. The recent relaxation aligns India with the global norms, where mandatory certification typically applies only to consumer-facing or safety-critical products. This move should enhance export competitiveness amid ongoing trade tensions. India's labour regulatory framework has long been a patchwork of 29 separate laws at the centre and many more at the states, many dating back to the pre-independence era. These laws often overlap with multiple definitions for similar concepts, creating complexity and inefficiency. The result has been a dual challenge. Sectors like manufacturing have struggled under restrictive archaic provisions, while emerging segments such as gig workers and contract employees lacking adequate social protection. The new Labour Code seeks to resolve these issues by consolidating these laws into 4 streamlined codes, addressing gaps in worker welfare and removing outdated clauses that hinder flexibility. The reforms emphasize ease of doing business through measures such as single registration and licensing system, decriminalization of minor offences, automatic renewals, and relaxed norms for hiring and firing. Provisions for women's night shift and simplified compliance processes further underscore the intent to modernize India's labour landscape. While near-term compliance costs may rise, the long-term goal is clear: greater formalization, reduced regulatory burden, and improved competitiveness. We think a true yardstick to measure the success of all the reforms can be done by tracking credit growth trends, share of manufacturing in India's GDP, formal workforce expansion, and increased foreign direct investment. On the corporate front, optimism has returned following Q2 FY26 results, with companies projecting a recovery in demand during the second half of the fiscal year. There has been some pickup in Indian equity market during October and November 2025. Nifty has risen by 6.5% over the last 2 months. FIIs bought $1.8 billion over the last 2 months after selling nearly $9 billion in the previous 3 months. Large cap valuation remained neutral, while broader market valuations are stretched, leading to narrow breadth. Sentiment has improved marginally, but increased equity supply through primary issuances and secondary sales is capping upside. Consensus forecasts suggest benchmark returns of around 15% over the next year, driven by earnings turnaround and policy support. However, foreign portfolio flows remain a concern. Even as FPIs returned to India in October and November, overall FPI's ownership in NSE's listed firms stands at a 15-year low of roughly 17%. Retail participation has been volatile, with mutual fund inflows rebounding mid-year but softening again in October. Without sustained market performance, domestic flows risk further moderation. We believe a meaningful acceleration in earnings trajectory would be crucial for markets to post a sustained recovery. The fixed income market has seen some breather in yields during October and November 2025, with segments enjoying a favorable near-term demand-supply balance proving more resilient. High-grade bonds continue to benefit from limited supply and strong demand, particularly from regulatory buying by long-term investors. It is interesting to note that despite being in a monetary easing environment, market rates such as CD rates and the G-Sec curve has moved up by nearly 20 basis points since the June policy review. This divergence underscores the influence of liquidity dynamics and external factors on pricing. Looking ahead, the forward outlook on growth and inflation, coupled with evolving risk factors, leaves room for further monetary support. The December policy review is expected to be live for what could be called as the last or penultimate rate cut in the current cycle. While debates persist on the efficacy of additional cuts, the prevailing macro context clearly supports maintaining accommodative monetary and liquidity conditions. At present, there is no case for speculating on policy reversal. From the fixed income perspective, Rupee has clearly been on an unfavorable trend this year. Indian rupee has been one of the few emerging market currencies to weaken this year, even as the dollar remains soft. The depreciation comes despite India's inflation being lower than that of the US and crude prices staying contained, both factors that typically favor a stronger rupee. Trade tensions appear to be the primary driver, and we believe that trade deal is imminent to arrest the negativity in exports, foreign inflows, and currency performance. The weakness in exports and dollar capital flows has pushed India's balance of payment into deficit. Data for August and September indicate that RBI sold nearly $16 billion in the spot market, and our assessment suggests an additional $15 to 20 billion was likely sold during October and November too. In rupee terms, this translates to roughly INR 3 trillion of liquidity being absorbed by RBI through FX interventions. The short positions in the forward book has also risen to $64 billion versus $53 billion 2 months prior. It is likely to have risen further in November. Consequently, durable liquidity in the system, measured as LAF surplus adjusted for government cash balances, has moderated by 2 trillion rupees from its July-August peak, despite 1.5 trillion rupee of CRR-related infusion and a relatively muted period of currency leakage. We expect RBI to conduct OMO purchases in Q4 FY26 to restore liquidity to the desired level of 1% of NDTL. Market direction remains largely governed by demand-supply dynamics and investor preferences. While tweaks in calendar supply and RBI's OMO support can provide short-term relief, structural demand-supply challenges will ultimately hinge on fiscal dynamics. India's fiscal consolidation trajectory is encouraging, but weakness in nominal growth is beginning to weigh on tax collections. This creates a demand-supply gap at a time when fiscal tailwinds have started to fade. From a risk-reward perspective, spreads on high-grade bonds and select short-tenor credits remain attractive. Given anticipated external volatility and its potential reset to market expectation, duration strategies will likely stay nimble, with a preference for lighter positioning. Short-tenor high-grade bond funds offer higher accrual, wider spreads, and optimal risk-return profile, presenting opportunities over the coming months and the next year. Additionally, state development loans are expected to see larger net supply in Q4 FY26, offering tactical opportunities for spread trades. Signing off for this month. Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.